Bushmen in the Kalahari Desert are the remnant of an ancient race. In many of their ways they live like Stone Age man, hunting game, gathering wild roots and berries. Their dry land is forbidding, but they have learned so well to use what it provides that they can live. The group you will see in this picture is at Gauchapan, indicated by the red circle on the map, near the eastern border of southwest Africa, 200 waterless, roadless miles into the Kalahari.
If you look at a map of Africa made in the 1940s, you will see in the southwest portion of the continent a sparsely inhabited bushland about the size of Spain. Within this is the Kalahari Desert, an area of about 120,000 square miles, much of it as seemingly empty as the Antarctic. In the interior, the map shows 20 degrees south latitude crossing 20 degrees east longitude, which formed part of the border between southwest Africa and the Bechuanaland Protectorate, now Namibia and Botswana. But there the map is otherwise blank, without place names or topographical features, because the map makers did not know of them. When in 1950 my father, Lorna Marshall, was looking at such a map in Windhoek, then a frontier town with unpaved roads, a government official told him that the place he was viewing was the end of the earth. No white person, he thought, had ever been there, and no Bantu person either. Yet that was where my father planned to go. He wanted to visit the hunter-gatherers who were believed to live there, and was considering the map because he was preparing to take my mother Lorna, my brother John, then 18, and myself, then 19, into that country.
My father, well, he was a civil engineer, and he started a business. Actually, he started Raytheon. And when he retired, he just wanted to go someplace to do something. It was World War II times, and he had been very, very busy. They made radar for the Navy, and he was continually, he worked day and night and didn't sleep, and all for years and years, and we hardly knew him. He'd be gone when we got up in the morning and would come back late at night and that kind of thing, that kind of work. And he wanted to do something with his family. And so this is what he decided to do. And he organized these expeditions, paid for them. He got backing from the Smithsonian Institution and also from Peabody Museum at Harvard. And through the Smithsonian, we got Army trucks, 2 surplus Army trucks, which we put on a boat and took over. And he organized it all so well that nothing bad happened to us. And we are one of the few people that can say that. If you run out of water, then what? You're not going to be able to find sources of water. There aren't streams, there aren't rivers. The water that was available was in little water holes that were hidden. You'd have to know where they were. And so we went in, we brought all our water with us. And the idea was that when we used it up, when we used half, we would then go back. We would turn around and go back. He also had parts, auto parts, enough to make another vehicle just about. We broke axles. The going was very rough. We broke tires, wheels broke, but we had the equipment to fix them, thanks to him. He was a very capable guy.
Let me tell you a story of something that happened to a friend of mine. Lorna Marshall was an anthropologist, documenting the lives of the Bushmen of the Kalahari. One day on that vast, thirsty desert, she was pouring some water into a basin when out of the sky came a huge black swarm of bees. African bees. African bees can be quite aggressive. Africanized bees are the killer bees we always fear coming to invade the U.S. Attracted by the water, this swarm of killer bees is headed right towards Lorna. So what is she thinking? Not get me out of here. She told me many years later that her only thought was this: those poor bees, they must be dying of thirst. Within a few seconds, desperate, thirsty killer bees are landing on Lorna's hands and arms. Bees are falling into the bowl of water. Now Lorna has another thought. The bees are drowning, and she must save them. So she makes little rafts out of sticks for them so they can drink, and she stays with the bees until they've had their fill and buzz away. This was what Lorna was like for all of her 103 years on this earth. an astonishing, gracious, and generous life that spanned 3 centuries. Lorna Marshall was best known for the Marshall Expedition, the first to document the lives of the Bushmen of Namibia in the early 1950s. With filmmakers and fellow anthropologists, with their daughter Elizabeth and son John, Lorna and her husband Laurance traveled 3 times to the Great Kalahari Desert. For nearly 4 years, they lived among the sand dunes and the thorns. Lorna was still writing her observations of the Bushmen when I first met her. She was still young then, in her late 80s, and immediately I saw why her understanding of her study subjects was so detailed and penetrating. Her curiosity was based on caring. And whether working for civil rights at home, or helping a younger colleague begin a career, or building tiny rafts for thirsty bees, Lorna put her caring to action. The Bushmen had few possessions and were often hungry, and most Westerners would have found the conditions unbearably bleak. But all her life, Lorna Marshall saw beauty where others saw barrenness. She saw strength where others might see only scarcity. And when others might feel terror, she saw instead an opportunity to help.
One arrow ran and his shoe came off from his foot, but he didn't care, just ran away with one shoe. And the other one threw away his hat. He didn't care for the hat. He ran away, and one broke a big branch of a tree with his chest, and he passed.
One of the things about the Bushmen is that social cohesion was essential to them. And in the life of the old way, social cohesion was life. People didn't like disagreements. People tried to have consensus on everything that happened. People weren't supposed to have more of something than anybody else. Sharing was religiously shared. Everything was shared. Everything was shared. People gave other people gifts all the time. There were no item or possession like an ornament or something like that, or a knife, stayed with any one person for any length of time. He would give it to his gift partners, and they would later on would give him a gift. All of this was done to achieve social cohesion. People were tremendously capable at not expressing anger, pain, anything like that. The self-control of people was enormous and very necessary.
But less than 50 years ago, such films were not lies. This series is about a people who once lived by gathering and hunting in the Kalahari Desert of southern Africa. They call themselves Juntwasi, which means people with correct speech and proper manners. Juntwasi call their vast land Laurance, but they are tolerant when we pronounce it Nai. People have lived in Nai for over 25,000 years. The series begins when Juntwasi was still independent, although Nai lay within the South African colony called Southwest Africa. The story is seen through the eyes of Komotsanko and his family, and follows the people through decline and wrenching change after the South Africans expropriated most of Nai. We will see the continuing Juntwa struggle to hold their remnant of land and survive in the modern world.
Lorna's death was as miraculous as her life. On her last night, coyotes came in close to the house and sang. Dogs howled. Barred owls hooted loudly from the woods. With her daughter and companions at her side, Lorna died peacefully the next morning. On the front lawn, doves rose on whirring wings into the air, as if accompanying her spirit. Lorna Marshall died as she lived. Transfixed by this world of beauty, want, and wonder, there was no room to fear what lay ahead.
ṣiṣẹ́ yẹ. Wẹ́lẹ̀ ṣiṣẹ́ yẹ. Labalábá fira rẹ̀ wẹ́yẹ. Wẹ́lẹ̀ ṣiṣẹ́ yẹ o. Labalábá fira rẹ̀ wẹ́yẹ. Wẹ́lẹ̀ ṣiṣẹ́ yẹ o. Labalábá tó bá fira rẹ̀ wẹ́yẹ. Wẹ́lẹ̀ ṣiṣẹ́ yẹ o. Labalábá tó bá fira